Hey there, I'm Neil. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the host of my new podcast, Pause and Rewind. I'll be chatting to changemakers, thought leaders, and role models who all share a common goal. They're striving to make the world a more inclusive place. And let's face it, we need it. Each guest has a unique story when it comes to doing their thing, and we often know who people are in the now. But how much do we really know about them? Pause and Rewind takes a moment to explore the experiences in my guest's life that led them to where and who they are now. Because everyone loves an origin story. We'll dive into tales, anecdotes, and what makes our guests tick. So, are you ready to pause and rewind? Hey there, and welcome to this episode of Pause and Rewind, where I'm chatting to the wonderful Sabah Choudrey. Sabah is many things. Firstly, Sabah has just finished their role as a youth worker for Gendered Intelligence, a phenomenal charity that does amazing work with trans youth. They are award-winning activist and campaigner. They're an author. Sabah's book, Supporting Trans People of Colour, How to Make Your Practice Inclusive, is available everywhere. Community organising is a fundamental part of who Sabah is. They are a co-founder of Trans Pride Brighton, which was set up back in 2013, and this year had a whopping 40,000 attendees. And also, Sabah is the director for Middlesex Pride, and this is amongst many other things, including being a go-go dancer, which is just wonderful, and we talk a little bit about that. Sabah describes themselves as a reluctant activist on most things trans, brown, and hairy. And I was really intrigued to dig into the wording of reluctant activist and how Sabah ended up doing the incredible work that they do now. We talk about a lot of things around Sabah's journey, around mental health. And I'd just like to pop out a trigger warning on there to ask people to please look after yourself while listening. Some of the conversations that we have during this episode are tough. It does get a bit emotional, but it is an episode packed with so much joy and so much inspiration. I absolutely love spending this time with Sabah, and I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation too. So enjoy it and let me know what you think. Cheers! Hey Sabah, welcome to Pause and Rewind.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, I am so excited to have you here. I'm really looking forward to diving into your origin story. But before I do, I would love to ask the big old question, what does the world look like for Sabah Choudrey right now?
It's a good question and actually a very timely one because the world has definitely shifted in the last month or so for me. I've been working at Gender Intelligence for 10 years and in June I handed in my notice to step back away from trans youth work, which was a difficult one because I mean trans youth work is my life and I just love everything about gender intelligence. But it was time for me to take a moment to really focus on my well-being and actually if I want to keep working with vulnerable communities, being on on the front line, supporting young people in a one-to-one context and my team members as well, then I need to actually have a break. I think I just didn't realize like, oh yeah, like, 10 years of youth work, it does take its toll. Not to say that it's the young people, but it is just, the world we live in. It's hard being a trans young person and we're like one of the few spaces that young people can feel safe in and trust us. So yeah, it's a an act of self-preservation to step back from youth work, and I do want to just focus a little bit more on myself as well, and focus on writing, focus on doing some more freelance work. Having time to just do things like this, join podcasts, and be a bit more present in the community, and just see what happens. So that's the world at the moment.
I mean, the work you do with Gender Intelligence is amazing. They are a phenomenal organization and so important right now, in this relentless anti-trans rhetoric that we're seeing in society. But I imagine a break for you doesn't really mean a break in what other people, because let's look at the many hats you wear, right? you've got author, you've got activist, campaigner, writer, public speaker. You know, you co-founded Brighton Trans Pride,
Yeah.
director of Middlesex Pride. You know, that is
Oh
not a
no.
break.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. You're right. You've called me out.
But it's good that you recognize that you're taking that time to focus on other things, and your work with youth is still going to continue through all of those other streams.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's kind of yeah, what I've come to realize is actually I'll always be a youth worker. And I'm really happy to be able to channel that through things that I do like Middlesex Pride and make that a really lovely youth-centered and family-focused event. But yeah, it is hard to. I think community work is always going to be in my blood.
Yeah.
When the opportunities arise, I'm just yeah, I just love it. I just want to do it. Just want to get involved.
Oh, you are such a phenomenal community organizer. I also forgot to add go-go dancer in there as well, and I love the fact that we get to throw that into the mix. You do it all. There's a particular part of your bio that I'd love to focus on, if that's okay, and
Mhm.
it's this idea of being, in your words, a reluctant activist on most things trans, brown, and hairy. And I read your recent Metro article. For those listening, the article is titled I want to see more hairy, brown, gender non-conforming bodies like mine. Where did the reluctant activist part come from?
Yeah, it's a really it often piques people's interest when I call myself that. I because I think so I've been doing a lot of like talks and public speaking and writing for maybe like over ten years now. And I think at one time someone called me an activist on a panel or something like that. It was like about active, queer activists or something like that. And I was like, oh, like is that what I am? Is that what this is? This kind of speaking and work that I'm doing. And it made me realize that actually I don't call myself that because I don't see the work I do as activism. Like it's really it's for myself. It's what I need, and actually talking about what it means to be trans or brown or Muslim is kind of I talk about it reluctantly. Like I'm sharing these experiences reluctantly and telling you what we need to for you to better support me reluctantly because I don't want to keep doing that. I want to go dance. Like that's what I already want to be doing. So, but I think for people who have marginalized identities, we are reluctantly pulled into those positions of being activists or having to change something, to be change makers, to educate, to inform, to raise awareness. When actually, what we want to be doing is like all the other things that that are about being human and being a part of community. Tender moments and like laughing and talking about things that aren't anything to do with our identities. So it's important for me to say that because it's like yeah, we don't always have a choice. Of course, the work is really fulfilling, but I think it's important to put those things together for me.
Before we move on to the more joyful side of things, I just want to, are you able to now lean into the activist side? Is it a title that you maybe reluctantly, but you are maybe proud of as well? You spoke at the first ever Trans History Week earlier this year,
Mhm.
but you also were part of the first all trans panel at Glastonbury.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think I also don't really see these things as activism, or maybe actually, maybe my view, and I think for quite a few people, the view of activism is a very narrow view. Like you're protesting, you're showing up, you're kind of leading a campaign, a national campaign, but actually, all these things that we do are our activism. Whether it is speaking on a panel or writing an article or like getting on stage and dancing. I think there's also part of like, yeah, everything we do is activism. Even, rest is part of activism, that we don't, it's not a linear kind of process to change the world. It's like a cycle. We need to show up and recharge like, continuously. So
For
Yeah.
sure, that's definitely an act of resilience and resistance as well. I hope you are so able to tap into that pride in everything you do because I love seeing you in so
Hmm.
many different avenues of my own work and talking to you. And I'm really thrilled to be talking to you today because often see each other at events and we never get the time to talk. Um,
Mm.
Talk to me about go-go dancing with the Spice Boys. Like I've seen you perform, and it was so much fun seeing you on stage with Tabs from Butch Please at the Pink News Awards last year. How did that come about?
How did that come about? It came about, of course, because some theatre kids that I know had some wild ideas. Yeah, there's a couple of friends of mine, Krishna and Kasra, who they started the conversation between themselves about kind of subverting the dances that we see in clubs and on at queer events. You know, they very often are, you know, muscular, athletic, cisgender, white men, and they're both hilarious. So they just wanted to have a bit of fun with it and obviously play on the Spice Girls and call it the Spice Boys. So, and it was about not just about gender or body diversity, but about race as well. So in the Spice Girls, there's, you know, Mel B, Scary Spice, who's the one token person of color. So we have one token white person in our group as well.
And there's Soft Spice, right?
Oh, Spice, yeah, yeah. And we also, so what, no, how did it start? How did it start? I think it just started with the photo shoot. Krishna was like, let's bring this to life. So we, yeah, had this photo shoot. It was 2019. So I think it, yeah, and it was just before the pandemic. So I think it kind of started and then it didn't kind of go anywhere for a little bit. And we just had so much fun, just kind of creating these little personas. And even that was just really empowering and just great to really like think about. I guess for me, it was kind of about like just validating our bodies and our expressions as like, yeah, no, we are as valid as the Spice Girls or, you know, the boys we see dancing at clubs. And we don't have to be professionals because that doesn't represent everyone. You know, we don't have to be, you know, this kind of conventional, sexy or attractive. We are all sexy and attractive in our own ways. And being able to show that on stages in all our different ways is like it's just so much fun. Yeah.
It looks fun. It looks fun, and you smash it on stages. Yeah, I love seeing you. I'm definitely want you at the House of Happiness at some point in the future.
Really.
Um, I would love to dive into your origin story. Are you ready to pause and rewind?
Yes.
Let's do this. Take me back. Tell me all about Little Sabah.
Little Saba was a fat hairy brown girl. Um and yeah, I didn't really think about gender. Like I just now I was kind of hesitating. I was like, what pronoun would I call myself? And I'm like, I don't really know, but none really feel quite right. I just gender just didn't apply to me. It was like a thing that I was aware of that in other people, and like my instinct would always be to go shopping and like when I was a kid to the men's clothes rails and pick out obviously like, you know, tartan plaid shirts because I'm queer like through and through. And it was only like at big events like you know, Eid or birthday parties where my mum would be like wear these girls' clothes, and I grew up with a twin sister, so it was a lot about like wear the same clothes. And I think it just kind of highlighted, oh, that's what a girl is. She's a girl, and I'm not. And I think somewhere along the way, the kind of pressure sunk in to be more like her. But I couldn't because we you know, we were totally different body types. You know, skin tones, our hair type was everything was, you know, we're just different. And also, my sister, she's you know, much more sporty and like just likes to, you know, run around and play games. And I was just like, I would go to our local library, and the maximum number of books you can take out is 10. I would take out 10 every time. I would take out 10, read them all in 2 weeks, and then return 10, take out another 10. Like I was such a little bookworm, and I just like to be alone. And I think, yeah, I think I was quite yeah, quite shy. I hid myself away a lot. Just knowing I was different and looked different, being hairy and fat and chubby. Like it just, I knew I didn't look like other girls. And saying that I did have some really great times also being myself. Like I would, like my mum and dad were quite chill. It was only on these like moments where they were like, okay, now you have to present yourself as a girl. But I would like play dress up and just like wear my dad's blazer and put on sunglasses and like just pretend I was like Shah Rukh Khan from Bollywood film and just dance around the living room and I would know all the words. Like I love Bollywood so much and my mum had all these cassette tapes and we would just like listen to them on repeat and I would know all the men's solos and when my friends would come over, me, my sister, our best friend, we would all like just reenact and lip sync the whole song and I would do the boy parts and my best friend would do the girl parts and it was just like it was really natural and it was really, really fun. So I guess you could say I've been at go-go dances since I was a kid. Been dancing and performing, yeah. But I think for me it was funny because like those parts didn't actually feel like the performance. That part was actually me being true to myself. And it was the other parts, showing up on my birthday party wearing the same dress as my sister, that was like the performance, or
Mm.
having to like go to a wedding like all dolled up, which was the performance. So that felt uncomfortable. Yeah.
Have you, if you don't mind me asking, have you spoke to your parents now about kind of their memories of looking back?
Yeah, and like when I came out as trans to my mom, and I've come out to both of them. When I was talking to her about it with my mom, about me being trans to my mom, sorry, I, she was kind of like, yeah, I kind of always knew, I kind of figured it out, and I was just like, well, thanks for telling me, like, like, oh, like you, okay, so it was a bit more obvious than I thought it was, and I think I probably have like kind of blocked out, or I just don't remember that much of my childhood, or
Mm.
see what my mum and dad saw, which was, you know, and they probably did see a lot more than I remember, they're probably right, like they did see that I was, happier pretending to be a boy, wearing boys' clothes than I was in girls' clothes, but I also just got used to being a girl as well because that was the only option at the time. So, I think that also played a part as well.
It's frustrating in a way, isn't it? Because we know that we're different. I think as queer kids, we know we're different. We know there's something that isn't quite normative about us. But when our parents recognize it as well and then don't say that until all those years later, it's like, yeah, you're right. You could have given me a hand.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, let's stick with family. What are perhaps some of your favorite anecdotes that you've heard about yourself?
Quite a few. Oh no, do I want to share this one? Okay, I'll share it. Okay, it was because I used to like reading so much. I would read as much, like whenever I could, as much as I could. And to the point where like even I mean people take a book to read in the toilet when they go. But I like to the point where I would be like there for like an hour just reading on the toilet and like I would piss off like my mum, my sister, my dad. They were just like, get out of the bathroom, Sabah, like we all need to use it as well. Um and like we have a second bathroom now and I just never thought twice about it. But then my mum said the other day, we built that because you took so long upstairs, and I was just like, no, that can't be true. No, that can't be true. But I mean, maybe it was. Maybe that's why we did have a second toilet built in, so I could
That,
read upstairs for hours.
that is a brilliant anecdote. Thank you for sharing. Um, obviously we author, writer, did you with that love of books, was that always going to be obvious that you were going to do something in written creatively?
Yeah, I think looking back now, for sure, like, and reading, I would read like horror books, science fiction, some kind of romance, schoolgirl kind of books like Jacqueline Wilson, but it was like R.L. Stein that was really like my love. And I think it was just like this world that anything could happen. Like, it's not about like everyday things. Like, yeah, anything can happen, and that's like terrifying, but also like incredible and inspiring. And I wanted to write horror stories. and like creative writing classes at school were my favorite. Like I would just write as many horror stories as I could. I would, I was also a bit of a computer nerd, so I would, just write on my laptop and make like really write stories on my laptop and create like word art, like title pages and stuff for these little books.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't obviously I don't write horror now, but I think it was my dream to like write a book and write a horror story. I mean, maybe there's still time.
Hey, if tapping into that joy and so doing something completely off piece, that would be amazing. Um,
Yeah.
Bookworm, lover of Bollywood and horror. What were you like at school?
At school, I was a bit of a I was what's the right word? Maybe just not a bit invisible, maybe. Yeah. Like I wasn't like an outcast. I wasn't anything. Like I was not visible enough to be anything, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And it was a predominantly South Asian school, and which was really nice for me. Like I just felt like I could blend in quite easily, and I was part of a little group of of friends. We were just four of us, and we were all the same, like bookworms, a little bit nerdy. Really liked school and did quite well in classes, and um, just like would hang out at lunchtime and just make up stupid, like silly little songs and stuff. We called ourselves the Aces because that was the first initials of our name. And we were just there for each other. We had a really good friendship. Um, but yeah, school was. I think when I started to, not when I started to, when it was harder to ignore the feelings that I had same, attraction to other girls, and I found it a little bit more difficult to find out where I fit in, and wondering if I still fit in.
Mm.
Could I still be a part of the Aces? If they knew I was a lesbian, which was what I identified as a time. And actually, when I came out to myself and to other people around me, I think maybe I was 15 or 16. It actually made me feel a lot more confident about myself generally, and I actually made a lot more friends. And I think I maybe floated around to different groups, also trying to figure out, do I fit in here if I was a lesbian? Like,
Mm.
are you more in my mind? I'm, assuming, would these people be able to accept me more, or understand me better? But I actually ended up making, a lot more friends, and becoming a little bit of a cool kid.
That's
Much to
lovely
the
to hear. It's not a that's not often a common trajectory actually that's the experience. What age were you roughly?
Yeah, I think I was 16 by the time
Yeah.
I was out to the whole school. I mean, what the part of the story that's missing is, first of all, my obsession with Mean Girls, and it's relevant to this story, because I fancied the pants off of Katie Heron, off Lindsay Lohan in Mean Girls so
Of
much.
course.
I I watched all of her movies she was in. I listened to all of her songs. Yeah, like I can still remember all the lyrics to those terrible songs.
There's
Um,
some tunes on some of those albums.
yes, no, they are. I will. Yeah, no, I was just saying that because I was embarrassed. But yes, there was Neil. There
I'm
was
with you. I'm
bangers.
with you.
And I was such a nerd about it that I would like print out like screenshots and poster pictures and put them on my binder at school. And I also had a badge maker. This is really nerdy, and I would make custom badge, like Mean Girl badges, and like wear them and put them on my bag. And it was like Linkin Park badges, Limp Bizkit, and then Mean Girls. That was my whole personality.
Quite the combo. That's amazing. And did anyone pick up on your crush on Lindsay Lohan?
So this is the next part of the story. It was really obvious, and like not quite. It wasn't. I stood out as like this little brown kid who like was obsessed with Mean Girls, and like we had this new girl at school, Laura Jade Taylor. Laura J. Taylor, she was new, and she was like a Regina George type. She was blonde, she was tall, she was like, like conventionally attractive. All the boys, everyone fancied her. And she was yeah, just not trustworthy, you know. And so she kind of we had this conversation, and she was kind of making out like she was, you know, trying to be, you know, get to know me a bit more. And she was, you know, just inquiring about why I'm so obsessed with Lindsay Lohan. And I told her, you know, I don't remember how it came out, but I told her like, yeah, I do have, you know, a crush on her, and I'm a lesbian. And then she told everyone in the year, and it was such a big deal because yeah, and you know, it was a predominantly South Asian school, pretty traditional ideas on like gender and what it means to be a boy and a girl, and no LGBT visibility at all. If you know, gay jokes all the time, casual homophobia. And so when people found out that I was a lesbian, everyone found out. Like one day I remember I was just walking to class, and like these two little girls who were so short and little came up to me, and they were like, excuse me, are you a lesbian? And I was like, I was like, who are? I was like, what year are you in? And they were like, we're in year 8. And I'm like, go away, go to class. Like, and I was in, yeah, year 11 at maybe year 11 at the time. And I was just like, what's going on? Like, it was just all a bit strange. So then for the next non-uniform day, I wore a t-shirt. I bought a t-shirt from, you know, you must have seen these in like Hampton Market that says "No one knows I'm a lesbian." So I wore that for the next non-uniform day, and I was like, well, at least everyone knows now, and I don't care. So
That is a bold move. I love it. Did you ever clear the air with Laura J. Taylor?
No, because I didn't care about her, and I was more. Yeah, I think I was just like, okay, that was silly of me to. No, it wasn't silly of me to trust her. She kind of,
Right.
you know, coaxed it out of me. But I think I just, yeah, I think I just was like, well, let me just own it
Yeah.
and be myself. Now there's nothing to lose. Everyone knows. And yeah, it was okay. I mean, even you know, I think the teachers also knew about it. I think I was, oh yeah, no, I was very expressive during some art projects as well. That caused some of the teachers a bit of concern about my mental health, which was like really good that they were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "All of this is happening." So yeah, I felt very supported in the end. Yeah.
Well, hopefully she's grown out of her Regina George behavior now, because it's not actually cool to be a mean girl. And do you still have a crush on Lindsay Lohan?
You know, she'll always have a soft spot. I always have a soft spot for her in my heart, and I mean, she's changed. She's gone through her own journey, and like I love that for her. But yeah, I haven't. Yeah, I don't know what she's up to now.
Drifted
And
apart. Do you remember the film I Know Who Killed Me?
oh my God, I watched that so long ago.
Horrendous, but brilliant, horrendously brilliant. Um, back to you, back to you. Um, from that moment on, were you able to just live authentically as you for the rest of your time at school and for a while afterwards?
Yeah, I was, and I, yeah, I felt like I was really confident and had a real sense of who I was, and to the point where I was like, okay, if I want to find more people like me, then I want to go to Brighton. That's where yeah, I know that's like the LGBTQ capital of the UK. Basically, at the time, it definitely was. And my cousin lived there as well, so we as a family we were like, it wasn't like totally outrageous. It was like, okay, yeah, it's a familiar place for all of us. So I went there to study at university, and there it was really where I started to understand my identity a bit more, and yeah, like my racial identity, you know, just kind of coming from being in a very South Asian school and area to like a really white town and having a lot of white friends. And but yeah, and then later on also, you know, coming out as trans. But I don't want to get ahead. I know we're
No, you're all good. No, I'm loving loving the journey. What did you study at uni?
I study psychology. Yeah, I really wanted to understand people, and was also in my CSI phase as well. And yeah, just was really intrigued by people, and yeah, just the differences in people's like mental health, different conditions, different, yeah, kind of psyches. So it was a starting point.
So it sounds like Brighton was a huge cultural shift, like as you said, with racial identity as well as kind of your own gender and sexuality. Um, how was that experience for you and your family to go through that together?
I think it was a little bit hard because I think at the time they were, sorry, they would see me, looking more gay and having different friends as like um kind of moving away from them and moving away from being South Asian and being Muslim, which, to some extent it was because I didn't feel like I had a place, Islam had a place for me. And I also didn't feel like, yeah, there were any LGBTQ South Asians. So I was like, well then, yeah, these things aren't fitting together.
Mm.
And I, even though it was only like an hour away from home, I didn't go home very much. Whereas like my sister did, and she went to uni in, sorry, she went to uni in Birmingham. So I think they just felt I was just, yeah, far away. And and I think when I started to realize that I might be trans, I think I was even further away. I think just not on purpose. I think I would just needed to be like closer to LGBTQ people and trans people so much more to feel like held, that I didn't really pay attention, I guess, to like the distance that was felt by mum and dad and my sister.
So was it a physical distance as much as a kind of like an emotional distance? And one of the displacement and fit and belonging are topics that come up a lot on the podcast and indeed our conversations as queer people. Was that perhaps something that you felt that you didn't perhaps belong? And have you since been able to find that belonging?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, at the time I didn't really feel like I belonged anywhere. Like, yeah, not home with family, but also not in my dyke scene in Brighton or in Brighton generally, because there weren't many queer or trans people of color. But now, yeah, definitely things feel so much more different. Like now I'm like the most the most Muslim one out of all my family members. Like, I've really, come to, what's the word? Integrate all these different parts of me, and everything just feels, yeah, less separate, less separated, less like I have to go to these different places or people to find to feed certain parts of me. Like I feel like I'm able to just be my whole self.
That's amazing. What was that journey like to finding peace with gender and sexuality and your religion?
It still is a negotiation of certain parts of myself. Like when I moved back to West London, my home, about gosh, maybe like 8 years ago now, I came back and I had to really negotiate being brown again, and being like in my in the house I grew up in, on the street that I grew up on, with like neighbors who knew me as a baby, like, and having to just like figure out which, you know how can I be visible or myself as trans and queer, and also feel safe or comfortable, or um do I need to dilute parts of myself? What feels okay and safe, and how can I also enable other people around me to understand who I am? And um, yeah, it was also just being around like brown masculinity that I haven't been around, and understand, kind of figuring out where is that comfortable for me, like, being called like boss or bro, like just on the regular. What do people see me as? And it's still a bit of a journey, but I've been able to. The difference is now I've got other trans South Asians and queer people of color in my life to talk about this with, and be like, yeah, how do we? What does it feel like for you being like, non-binary, but then being called bro, or like, but it's by brown people. Like it feels different than like if I just got gendered as a man. Like like all these kind of nuances that I'm able to actually focus on and talk about with people around me. So that's the difference. It's yeah, it's still an ongoing journey, but I've got more like resources and pockets of support along the way.
With that, let's focus, let's take it back to Brighton and focusing on the community. Um, you studying at university, what happens next, and when did you find that community in Brighton that led to you building your life there and back in 2013, kind of like Brighton Trans Pride?
What was happening? I was in a relationship with someone called Lucy, who at the time was like she was doing. She's a queer cis woman, and she was doing like all this activism and international LGBT work with different organizations, and it was just like had just so many different stories and like different friendships and relationships with people of all identities. And I think that was just like a bit of a door into like yeah, just different, like just difference, because my world was just lesbians, like white lesbians, the L word, like bar event, like it was just that. And so this was like a real, yeah, a real breath of fresh air. And I think it was just like it wasn't like a moment where I was like, oh, I'm trans. It was just like I can't even pinpoint when, but just over time, like the thought or the idea of like changing gender, transitioning, just started to kind of filter into my thoughts and into my dreams as well in a way. And it wasn't even like okay, it can't come out of conversation. It just started off like, oh, what if? Or like, there's no point in transitioning if I can't have this, or if this isn't the way, or like, all these kind of like, just kind of stopping myself from even thinking about accepting it in myself or doing it. But I think over time, I think it just became, my mental health was really struggling, which I think was an indicator of like, I, there's something in me which isn't, what's the word? There's a really clever word I want to use. Congruent. Yeah. There's an incongruence inside me, that isn't, that is not allowing me to settle or to feel happy. Something isn't like, yeah, kind of aligning. So yeah, so I came out and I asked my partner Lucy and my friends to like call me, to use he him his pronouns. I did use a different name for a little bit, but I didn't. I think it was at the time my idea of being trans was like a really binary trans narrative of like,
Mm.
female to male, male to female. You change your name, you change your pronouns, you get hormones, and then you get the surgery, and then that's that. Because that was the visibility at the time anyway. So I was like, oh, I should change my name. I should change my pronouns, but so I haven't changed my name. And I did try, but it just felt like people were talking about someone else.
Mm.
And I think that's also kind of the way that I felt about like he, him, his pronouns as well. So I came out as a trans man at first, but then as I started to understand gender, like the spectrum, the diversity of gender, I was like, I'm not actually a man and don't actually want to be one. Masculinity, like, yes, love that. That'll fit me. But so let me find my way along this spectrum a little bit. So yeah, like kind of feel a bit more like gender fluid or transmasculine. So then, yeah, after some time, I started using they them pronouns, and then now I've kind of picked a little bit of he a little sprinkle of he him in there as well now. Yeah, it was really hard though. Just having it just felt like I was starting again, like just being like kind of being alone again, like. I already kind of done that when I came out as a lesbian and figured that out, and then now I'm here, and I'm in an even more kind of marginalized, um, identity, I guess. There are even less of us. How am I going to find people like me? So that was kind of where I started to. What happened? I started writing. I kept a little blog, and then I think I realized that there aren't experiences like mine that are out there that are visible. Um, and I think I started to like just kind of yeah just speak up and say like that, you know, there's no trans people in this, you know, organization or at this event. You know, there aren't any people of color. You're not talking about experiences. You say you're talking about all experiences, but actually just talking about white experiences. And just I just started to speak up. And I got invited to speak on panels and at events, which is where I first started public speaking publicly. And then and then somehow amongst all of this was also me and, you know, the few trans friends I had, just also like just trying to live a life in Brighton and, you know, go to Brighton Pride and also having a shit time there as well. Like
Mm.
at the time there was, and I say at the time because I mean it might be the same now, but I can't speak on what it's like now. But you know, we weren't having, yeah, we weren't represented at Brighton Pride. We, you know, some of my friends would leave early because they were being harassed. There was transphobia. Security staff went on their side, and it was just like, why are we going to these events which aren't for us? Like
Yeah.
we have to fight so hard to be seen and heard, and then we're still an afterthought. We're still not thought of at all. And then it was just this conversation. We were at a coffee shop in Brighton, and we were just like, we need to do something. Like, why don't we just have our own trans pride? And it was just that conversation, that moment when we just were like, okay, like yeah, let's do it. And it was it was amazing, like the speed in which we all just got we just got our shit together. Um,
Amazing.
yeah, we were so lucky because we had the support. Like one of the I don't really use the word allyship very much, but what this was such an act of trans solidarity as well. This how the first Trans Pride happened because we had the cis people who worked together with us were amazing. Like one person called Nikki, she worked at Brighton Hove City Council. She was like, this is what you need to make an event happen, and that's like, you know, that the council are going to be happy with. Here's the paperwork you need to sign. Here's the permits. Here's the things. Here's a grant you can apply for. You know, let me help you, and just kind of like, oh, you know, green light things as much as I can. And then we had Jane, who was the organizer of the Kent Town Carnival, you know, for like years. So like has done, you know, outdoor events and was just like, let me help you get all your policies and all your permits and documents and paperwork in order, and support you throughout this meeting. And then there's all of us like trans people, you know, mixture of like, yeah, community workers, charity workers, writers, journalists, you know, academics, you know, all kinds of, you know, different kinds of activists, and you know, just doing the real like community side of it, and the promo. And so it was just a really great team to run that first one and get it together.
It's over a decade ago now.
Yeah. Oh my
I
God.
asked, I asked Lady Phil this question when talking about UK Black Pride. Did you ever think from those initial first conversations that it would be as big as it is today? Because it is one of the hugest.
It is, yeah. Like, I mean, we didn't even think about having a march. We were like, that's too much to think about right now. So it was just the event in a park in Kemp Town, and I was just like, oh, there's gonna be like, I mean, at the first conversation, I was just like, oh, it's just gonna be an embarrassing group of like 30 trans people walking up West Street on a grey rainy day. But I was like, okay, like maybe like you know, maybe like 200 or 300 people will come. Like I think that'll be cool. But we had like, oh my God, how many people came on the first one? Maybe it was like 1,000. But whatever the number was, like it just blew me away because I was just like, oh, like people really want this to happen. Yeah, like everyone needs this. And again, it is like it's not just for trans people, it's for everyone. Like it's for the cis people who love trans people and who want to see trans people thrive, who have trans people in their lives. Like I think that's one of my favorite things about Trans Pride Brighton. Yeah.
When you look at those numbers from this year, over 40,000 people, how do you feel?
It's amazing. Like it's amazing just to see how much it's grown and how many trans people can just come together and know that this is their space and this is their moment and they're safe, they're visible, and they're proud. And like whenever, so I bring we bring like a group of trans young people there every year. We used to with gender intelligence, and every time we do that, I make sure those young people know who are there for the first time. I'm just like, look around you, like
Yeah.
this is your community, like these are your people from all over the UK. Like we're all here today, but like we exist. Like
Yeah.
wherever you're from in the UK, like there's going to be a trans person near you. And just like I really want people, young people especially, to just remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're often as queer people, we create what we need, right? We create the spaces we need, we create the community that we need. Your story is so fundamental to that. You didn't see what you needed, and so that spurred on this massive movement that is still going strong. It's incredible.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. So what was it that spurred on the movement in inclusion that you've kind of found yourself on? So was it the first talk where you thought, I'm onto something here, or is it just something that just happened? Does it fit in with the reluctant activist side of things that you just found yourself in inclusion?
Mm. It might be that there's more than one moment, but the moment that came out first when you said that was when I did my TEDx talk in Brixton, actually, in when was it? 2016. Um, I one of my friends, one of my best friends from school, was just volunteering on these TEDx events, and after a couple of years, was like, you should apply like to speak on stage, and I was just like, because yeah, at that point, up until then, I was just doing, yeah, just very like focused trans organizing and talking in LGBT spaces about my experiences. It felt very like, I guess, pigeonholed, I suppose. And then this was like, TED Talks, they're a big deal, and people talk about things that are like really important, and they're they're really amazing, amazing speakers, and they've really got something to say. And my friend Rima, she was like, yeah, you should do it. Like, she's known me for years, so I was like, okay, like maybe this could be something. And you know what? I'll just apply, and maybe nothing will happen, and I'll just share a little bit about my story. Um, and then I actually got accepted, and so I got invited to then. And I don't know if this is usual of all TEDx events, or if people know this, but so then I think maybe there was like 10 or so of us speakers from London, or have connections to Brixton, which is where it was. And we have to then go on like maybe it was like an 8 week or 10 week kind of course almost in public speaking. So we all worked together for, yeah, like 10 weeks in the run up to the event, really sharing our stories, sharing, like, being really vulnerable with each other, talking about those moments that make us tick, that make us the sparks in our story, and the peaks and the troughs, and working with professional speakers and previous TEDx speakers, and writers as well, and just honing down our talk. And it was like an amazing experience. Like, it was just amazing to just also, for me, it was really validating as well, because I was sharing so openly and so candidly about being trans to like a group of people who I would never brush shoulders with. There was like a scientist, there was like, a community worker, there was like, people who have just such different walks of life, which is like the beauty of TED events, right? They bring together so many different stories, and they're all like amazing, and inspiring. And to then be, yeah, alongside these people who, we all supported each other. We were just like our own like family, like throughout the whole process. It was just amazing, like, to feel so validated in that, in my gender, in my masculinity, and my faith as well. So I talked about. It was about how I negotiate all these parts of my race, my gender, my faith, and not feeling brown enough, not feeling trans enough, not feeling Muslim enough, and actually coming to terms with all of that, and yeah, kind of what I've said to you actually, like how I feel like I am enough, and I'm more than enough, and just really, just showing people like this is who I am. And I invited my mum and my partner at the time, and that was really important as well to invite my mum, and for her to see that, to see me, to hear my story from in this way, and yeah, at the end of it makes me a bit emotional talking about it now. It was such a moment. Like at the end of it, there was a standing ovation, and like, oh, it was just, yeah, it meant so much. It meant so much. And it was the first time I was talking so openly to like so publicly about myself, and to feel that, yeah, that love, that affirmation. It was just amazing.
It sounds phenomenal. I'm feeling emotional hearing you talk about it. Did you talk to your mum about it afterwards? What was how, how did that conversation go after her listening to you being so vulnerable and open?
Yeah. Yeah, she was so proud of me. Yeah. It's making me
Of
emotional.
course, of
Yeah,
course
yeah,
she
she was really
was.
proud. Yeah.
That sounds like a phenomenal moment and a history-making moment as well. Um, Talk to me about someone who shaped you the most along the way.
Someone who shaped me most on. Oh, let me grab a tissue.
No, you go for it. Thank you so
Um,
much for sharing.
no, thank you for listening, and like, yeah, providing that moment to reflect on that part of my journey and my story. It's really nice to do that, because I
We
don't.
don't, we don't as people, and I find that this is, it's really important to look back at. This is all about looking back at where you've come and what's led you to who you are now.
Yeah, I get, when you get the questions of like, who's your role model, who do you look up to, and I'm like, I really
Mm,
struggle, because I think the people in my life have been like my friends,
yeah.
like people like Krishna, people like Travis Alabanza, who we actually, the three of us, we all kind of knew each other when we were like little baby trans, and we would actually get asked to speak on the same panels. So we kind of had this, just we just had this little running joke between us that we would just always see each other on the panels, and like when we got invited, when we joined an event and we saw the other person, we were like, oh, of course it's you. Who's the other trans person of color on the TPOC panel? Like, and we would really, yeah, we just had these really nice moments to unpick like those experiences for us, which were really specific, like kind of sharing to majority white audiences or majority cisgender audiences, and just were able to, yeah, just to really support each other through validating what we say, and our own experiences, and of course they're trans people of color, and being able to see like how they do gender, and how they negotiate their race with their gender and navigate that, was and is like so important for me still. I think, yeah, and they're just beautiful thinkers and writers and performers, and like just how much now like they are able to be themselves on stage and to write, and just be so funny as well. Like it's like they're forever inspiring for me.
Sounds
Yeah.
like you went on quite a journey together, and look at you all doing what you're doing. It's phenomenal. My final question for this segment is, what are you most proud of to date?
I think it's tricky, because I there's quite a few things, and in the last few years I've let myself be proud of a lot of things in my life. Like, um I started doing this thing where just write down a list of, at the end of the year, I just write down a list of everything I've done in that year, that is like as small as like, oh, I got this pair of trainers that I really wanted, and I love them, to like, writing a book. Like, there's no scale to of like a success, or like something I should be proud of. So I regularly like reflect on the year, and also because I forget like all these things that I do, and then And I don't want to, and my friends have to remind me, like, and like your intro, I was just like, oh God, like I do so much.
Yeah.
Um, so what am I most proud of? I think it will still be my writing my book, writing a book that has supporting trans people of color like on the front cover. Like, I think that has that has so much knowledge and so many words and research and quotes from like so many other people I really admire in it. Like, it feels like something really special. It feels like, just a really, I'm just like, I still can't believe I did it. Like, and like, I'm kind of thinking back to little Sabah and being like, always writing stories and writing in my journal and just writing and writing and like wanting to write a book. And I'm like, oh shit, like I actually did it. Like, it's a different, I mean, it's not a horror book, but it's not a scary story.
There's still time. There's still
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
The House of Happiness is London's ultimate sober clubbing extravaganza. We're led and delivered but created for all, whether teetotal, sober curious, or just taking a booze snooze. We love a day rave, and on a Saturday afternoon you can expect banging house tunes, DJs on decks, dancers on podiums, and a fully stocked alcohol-free bar. Flamboyant, bold, with a glitter station to boot. We're all about safe, inclusive fun, and we even have a pre-meet so that you can make new sober buddies before you hit the dance floor. Grab your tickets from Instagram now at House of Happiness Official, and we'll see you on the dance floor.
Yeah.
Let's move on to quick fire questions. What album, book, or movie has had a lasting impact on you?
Well, obviously, Mean Girls, but I think actually, one of the books that really shaped me and like just really had that huge kind of like punch to the stomach impact was Whipping Girl by Julia Serrano, which was includes her trans woman manifesto. And at the time I was really, I was just coming out, I was just identifying as trans, I think, and I was like, I was identifying as a feminist for a while, and so I was just really like curious and also like actually troubled in myself about how I as a person, as a woman, want to transition to be a a trans man, and how am I going to feel comfortable with being able to having to like benefiting from male privilege and the patriarchy, and like how do I come to terms with this? What can I do? And I just was like in this state of like turmoil, because that's who I am. But like I also disagree because fuck the patriarchy. But this book just pulled apart everything about the patriarchy, about misogyny, trans misogyny, cis sexism, and like I just understood everything, and it was just like so grounding. It was so grounding. Sorry, I know you said quick fire question. That was a quick
No,
answer and then a slow answer.
brilliant. I'm going to look up the book.
Yeah.
What's a saying you live by and one that you'd put in the bin?
Okay. Oh, no, there's just like some like very like stereotypical like LGBT quotes that I just roll my eyes at, but I wouldn't put them in the bin because they're useful. No, and I don't want to get cancelled on this podcast. I would. I think there's like the sayings I put in the bin are like ones that are just like just toughen up or get through it.
Yeah.
Those kinds of sayings which are just like which don't take into account like rest is important, and actually you shouldn't have to just get through something that's uncomfortable or painful. Um, One saying that I live by is probably something from the Quran, which is translate to verily with hardship there is ease, which basically means after every hardship, after every difficulties, you will find ease and gentleness and comfort. And I feel like that's a really, very grounding, and just reminds me of like, okay, like this part right now is hard, but it'll be better. It'll get better. Um, yeah, that's a really nice one.
It is. That's beautiful. What has been the best adventure of your life so far?
It's a good question because like I like that adventure could mean anything.
Absolutely anything.
You know what comes to mind is when I took the first holiday by myself. I was I trans yet? I think I was. Yeah, I was trans. I just freshly trans, and I had gone through a really bad breakup, and coming to terms with like like the relationship, which was emotionally abusive, and just was feeling awful. So I booked myself a trip to Toronto, which I'd looked up on Autostraddle, which I don't know if it is a thing anymore. And they had like these. It's like a feminist online platform, and they had like these queer city guides, and they had one on Toronto, and I read it, and I was just like, I'm in love with Toronto. I have to go there now. So I that was yeah. So I was like, I'm gonna go there alone. I'm gonna find myself. I'm gonna find my community, and just be brave and just yeah, just take risks and see if I can do it. And I found like the most wonderful groups of queer people and queer people of color and trans people, and had the most amazing experiences. And because I was there by myself, I could say yes to everything. It was just like yes, like what are you doing tomorrow? Let's hang out again. Let's go here. Like yes, yes, yes. Like, I can do any. Like I'm like the in control of my own time and my own autonomy, and it was amazing. And like yeah, I'm still friends with people there to this day. I'm actually going in a couple of months to go back and see everyone as well. Yeah, it was just yeah, it was life changing.
That sounds it. That sounds incredible. Oh, well, I've never been to Toronto, so it's definitely on my list of places to go.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Final question, final quick fire question. What three words would you use to describe you and your origin story?
Would trans, brown, and hairy be too on the nose?
Listen, they're your three words. I love it.
Yeah, there we go.
Trans, brown, and hairy, and
Yeah,
proud.
definitely.
Love that. Let's fast forward. What exciting things do you have coming up aside from a trip to Toronto?
Yes, so I'm working with UK Black Pride this year as part of my Work with Colours Youth Network, and me and my colleague Chloe, we are supporting the youth and families area and like really curating the program, getting some workshops in, and just making it a really youth accessible event. Because last year we've taken young people there almost every year for the last few years, but we noticed that young people like drift away when the youth workers leave, and don't really there isn't much opportunity for them to go and kind of talk to people, or if they're going by themselves, it's a bit intimidating. So we really wanted this to be like a space that feels like their Black Pride in a way. So yeah, we've got some cute workshops and some amazing speakers. Krishna's coming back as well to speak on the panel. And yeah, it's going to be a wonderful time, and I'm really looking forward to that. But other than that, I think I really want to focus on writing a bit more. And it won't be a horror, but I do want to write another book. The horror will come later, I'm sure. But I do
I'm
want
going to
to.
hold you to this.
Yes, yes, please do. I want to write something that is a little bit more about my hairy brown journey, and what I'm kind of maybe calling like a hairy memoir. So I know I haven't really talked about hair much, but it's been like a constant in my life, you know, being just born hairy and navigating what it means to be hairy as a girl, as a brown girl, and as a trans person, as a trans person who takes hormones, as a man, as a person seen as a man, as a you know, hair and masculinity, and also around faith and race. And so it's just been like this very interesting like lens to view parts of my experience, and I just want to yeah put that down on paper and yeah put it out there somehow.
There's so much public discourse around hair and hairy bodies
Mm,
and
yeah,
what's deemed as acceptable
yeah,
and
yeah,
attractive.
yeah, all of that. Like I just yeah, and I could talk about it. I could talk about it for hours. I could write about it forever. So I'm just like maybe now is the time to maybe put it out there. So that's my focus for this time in my life.
Stay tuned, peeps. Stay tuned. And also Sunday, the 11th of August, UK Black Pride. I will definitely be seeing you there. Um,
Yes.
Sabah, what brings you joy?
What brings me joy? What brings me joy? You know what? Dancing brings me joy. If I and listening to like loud Bhangra music, yeah, and house music, like upbeat music. Um, it makes me feel so happy. Like I love dancing. I mean, I'm not trained or anything. I just have loved dancing since I was younger. Me and my sister, we used to like watch YouTube videos when we were teenagers and like learn like how to two-step and like how to do certain moves. And then when we would go to the club, we would wow everyone by like doing synchronized dancing together. It was so it's just been something I love doing. And you know, go-go dancing is also a part of that as well. Like just being able to do something that is not that is it's demanding of me in very different ways to what I'm used to in terms
Yeah,
of like youth work or talking on stage. You know, this is just it's just about there's less thought involved in a way because I can just be me and be free.
it's such a freeing experience. It's like get on a podium and it's like you just feel free. It's also a good outlet, right? For everything
Yeah.
else. Yeah, moving your body, it really is. What takeaways do you have for anyone listening wanting to carve out a career in inclusion or create an inclusive space?
Well, whatever it is that you want to do, I would say. What would I say? Let me have a think. I would say find out or spend some time with thinking, find out what you are passionate about and what really motivates you, what angers you, what makes you feel proud, what makes you feel joyous, and focus on that. And also figure out what ways work for you as well. Like, you know, for me, it's writing and talking on a stage, but it could be it could be something else. It could be creating videos. It could be photography. It could be like paint, like anything creative that works for you, and use that as well. Don't don't yeah don't do something that someone else is doing just because they're doing it. Like do what they're doing, but do it in your way, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And I would say also make sure you build in rest and downtime and time with your community to around it. Like it's these two things go hand in hand, and unfortunately, like the world isn't going to always remind you of that, especially if you end up in I don't know, particularly like the corporate sector or working outside of you know, well-being spaces. Like no one's going to be like, hey, like, do you want to take a break? That was a really heavy panel you just did, or wow, like you've just finished like this massive project. Maybe you go on holiday. Like you've got to do it yourself. And you know, that's also a way for you to role model well-being as well. Like I think yeah, it's really important to build that in because we need people to be well if we want the movement to keep going, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you can't show up for yourself, then you know you're going to have nothing left to show up for others. Thank you so much. My final question for you, Sabah, is this: do you have any words of encouragement or wisdom to help anyone out there get to wherever they're going?
No matter like how, wait, what do I want to say? What I'm thinking of is like people who are still unsure of their identity, or people who haven't felt like they can share or voice who they are to people around them, to family or friends. And I think I want to say like whatever, like that doesn't matter. Like you're still valid. Like whatever you feel inside you doesn't change who you are. You know that, and no one what people see that doesn't change who you are either. Um, and whatever little thing it is that you need to affirm yourself, whether it is like, you know, keeping an anonymous blog like I did, or writing in a journal, or just having like this one person who like an internet friend who uses different, you know, your true pronouns and name for you. That's like that's enough, and like really like lean into that. And if that's all you can do right now, then that's totally okay. Like there's no timeline or speed that your life should be going at. It's completely up to you. And you'll get to where you're going. Yeah.
Sabah, thank you so much for appearing on Pause and Rewind. I can't wait to see you at UK Black Pride, and I'm so grateful for this time together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Neil. This has been, yeah, just such a lovely conversation. Thanks for being such a great host.
I've loved it. See you soon.
Bye bye.
Wow, what a conversation. I always feel so inspired after my conversations on Pause and Rewind, and that is definitely the case with Sabah too. I adored hearing about little Sabah and about how their love of reading and being an absolute bookworm, and also their love of performing and singing Bollywood songs and playing the male part. And all of that shines in the Sabah we see now, with being an author and with ambitions for more. I'm going to hold Sabah to account with that horror book, and their love of performing as well, and the joy that being on a podium brings them as a go-go dancer. I really enjoy talking to Sabah about that role of reluctant activists. And it's so true around the pressure that we place on minorities to educate people, and to show up for their own communities, at a time when it's hard, at times when it might necessarily be what they feel like doing. We're definitely seeing that with the trans community right now. And with, with, as was we kind of covered at the beginning, the relentless attacks against trans people in the media, in politics, and the importance of other people needing to step up, because it comes at a toll. And trans people need allies to be there now today, more than ever. We talked about community organizing, and it was very clear that, when it comes to Sabah, it was very, part of their role as a community organizer was creating something that they needed as well, when they didn't see themselves represented, and how they stepped up and showed up for their community. And that led to the creation of Trans Pride Brighton back in 2013. And just, yeah, the way that Sabah continues to show up. The three words that Sabah used to describe their origin story: trans, brown, and hairy. Sabah brings that to their writing, they bring it to their public speaking engagements, and they're bringing it to the podium too. Trans, brown, and hairy, and with pride, because the simple message that, I think what Sabah's work does is it talks about the fact that all bodies, all people should be loved and celebrated. Sabah, I love and celebrate you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I'm so grateful. I hope to see you at UK Black Pride. Sabah is heading up the youth and family area there. So if you're going, say hi to me, say hi to Sabah. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please share with anyone you think might benefit from having a listen, and stay tuned for more amazing conversations on Pause and Rewind. Cheers.